So what is it that actually makes people want to work hard? Is it just the money, or is it something deeper, like a sense of purpose? Maybe it's just having a great boss. It's a huge question that every single business on the planet has to figure out. Today, we're going to dig into three classic and really different answers from three major thinkers: Taylor, Maslow, and Herzberg. Let's jump in. So, here's our game plan. We'll start with this big motivation puzzle. Then, we'll see how the thinking on this has changed over time, starting with Taylor's super simple money-focused ideas, then moving to Maslow's more human approach, and finishing up with Herzberg's kind of surprising theory. And at the end, we'll see how all this stuff still pops up in the real world.
All right, let's make this personal for a second. Just think about it. What genuinely gets you fired up to do good work? Is it the paycheck at the end of the month? Is it someone telling you, hey, great job? Or is it that feeling that you're contributing to something that actually matters? Whatever your answer is, I bet it connects to one of the theories we're about to dive into.
Okay, first up, let's time travel back to the Industrial Revolution to meet Frederick Taylor. He was an engineer, and for him, a factory was just a giant machine. His one and only obsession, figuring out how to make that machine run faster, cheaper, and way more efficiently. He wasn't thinking about teamwork or feeling good. He was thinking about pure, hard optimization. Wow, right? This quote says it all. Taylor was not looking for creative thinkers. He literally saw workers as interchangeable parts, cogs in a big machine. Their only value was how quickly and accurately they could follow orders. It's a really harsh way of looking at things, but back then, it was a totally revolutionary idea. And this obsession of his led to this big idea he called scientific management. The whole point was to stop guessing and turn management into a hard science. That meant you had to measure everything, monitor everyone, and control every single step of the process. And it was all for one simple reason: to drive down the cost of making each and every unit. And here's how the recipe worked. First, you'd find your absolute fastest, most efficient worker. Then you'd study them and break down exactly what they did to create a best practice. Then you'd train everybody, and I mean everybody, to do it the exact same way. No creativity, no deviation. So, how do you get them to do it? For Taylor, the answer was ridiculously simple: money. You pay them based on how much they produce. This is called piece rate. More output, more pay. That's it. Full stop. But here's the thing. People aren't machines, right? We're way more complicated than that. And that brings us to our next guy, a psychologist named Abraham Maslow. He came along and introduced a much more human perspective. He argued that what drives us is actually a whole lot more complex and layered. Maslow's big idea is his famous hierarchy of needs, which you've probably seen as a pyramid. Right at the very bottom, the foundation, are our basic physiological needs. Food, water, a roof over your head. In the working world, this is simple. It's a paycheck that's big enough to live on. Maslow said if you don't have this, nothing else in the pyramid even matters. Okay, once you've got survival covered, we move up to the next level: safety. This is all about our need for security, for stability. You start asking questions like, is this job secure? Or is this a safe place to work? We absolutely have to feel safe before we can even begin to think about the higher level stuff. Next up on the pyramid, social needs. We're human. We're social creatures. We're hardwired for connection. We have this deep desire to feel like we belong, to be part of a team, and to feel liked by the people we work with. This is where things like teamwork and a good company culture become so important. After that, as we keep climbing, we get to esteem needs. This is all about respect, both self-respect and getting respect from others. It's about your status, getting recognition for your skills, and being trusted to handle important work. That Employee of the Month award or a fancy job title, that is aimed squarely at this level. And finally, at the very, very peak of the pyramid is self-actualization. Maslow thought that very few people ever truly reach this stage. This is the ultimate motivator, that internal drive to fulfill your absolute potential, to be challenged, to learn and grow, and to become everything you're capable of being. So how does this all map onto an actual job? Well, it's a pretty clear roadmap for businesses. An acceptable salary and decent working conditions, that takes care of your physiological needs. Job security and safety policies, that covers safety. Teamwork, mentoring, after-work socials, that's your social bucket. Job titles, getting praised for good work, being trusted, that builds esteem. And finally, getting a promotion or a really challenging project, that's the path to self-actualization. Of course, this theory has been around for a while, and people love to poke fun at it. There's a popular joke that for modern life, the real foundational needs are a strong Wi-Fi signal and a fully charged battery. It's just a funny little reminder of how our basic needs can change with the times. All right, it's time for our final theorist, Frederick Herzberg. Now, he looked at what Maslow is saying and added this really fascinating twist. He basically argued that the things that make us satisfied and happy at work are completely different from the things that make us dissatisfied and miserable. It's not one single scale. This is his two-factor theory, and the core idea is a bit of a mind bender. Getting rid of the things that make you unhappy doesn't automatically make you happy. Think about it. The opposite of dissatisfied isn't satisfied. It's just not dissatisfied. They are two totally separate things you have to manage. And this is how he broke it down. On one side, you have what he called hygiene factors. These are things like your pay, your working conditions, all that company red tape. Now, if these things are bad, you will absolutely be dissatisfied. But, and this is the kicker, even if they're great, they don't actually motivate you to work harder. They just prevent you from complaining. The real motivation, Herzberg said, comes from the other side, the motivators. This is the good stuff, a sense of achievement, being recognized, doing work that feels important. That's what actually creates satisfaction and drives performance. So if you're a manager, what are you supposed to do with this information? Well, Herzberg pushed two big ideas. First, job enrichment, which means making a job more interesting and challenging, not just a boring list of tasks. And second, empowerment, which is all about giving your employees real control and trusting them to do their work without you breathing down their necks. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here with three very different ways of looking at motivation. So let's pull it all together and do a final side-by-side comparison to see how they all stack up. Let's wrap this up. For Taylor, the employee was just a resource to be optimized, and money was the only tool. You still see that thinking today on assembly lines. For Maslow, the employee was a whole person with a ladder of needs to climb, which is really the thinking behind things like career development plans. And for Herzberg, an employee is an individual who needs genuine satisfaction from their work itself. That's the philosophy that drives the culture of autonomy you see in a lot of tech startups. And that brings us full circle, right back to you. The next time you're at work or even in class, take a look around. Be a motivation detective. Do you see Taylor's focus on pure output? Do you see Maslow's different levels at play? Or do you see Herzberg's split between what prevents unhappiness and what truly creates joy? It's a really interesting lens to look through.